Greetings everyone! Welcome to the Sonic 288 review. We're starting a new story arc that takes things back to the beginning, Genesis of a Hero. For the next 4 issues, the comic will take a peek at a classic console game and how it fits in with the new continuity. I have more to say later on, so let's get started. Our tale begins with Sonic going through the last level of the first game, Scrap Brain Zone. Well, that was fast. He comes across Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik and his associate Dr. Julian Snively. Sonic unfortunately runs into a force field and Eggman sends Sonic into the area below. We're all familiar with said area, Scrap Brain Act 3, aka a brief recreation of Labyrinth Zone. Even Sonic's annoyed at this, but still, he gets through the area, including swimming in that purple water. Eggman detects Sonic approaching, and he and Snively are off to prepare a surprise for him. Sonic makes it back to base, only to be greeted by Eggman and Snively coming out of the engine pistons with the intent on crushing the Hedgehog. This is only part of Sonic's problem, as there are energy sparks ready to zap him. Sonic's had enough and starts ramming the occupied pistons until the damage forces an automatic shutdown. Eggman and Snively retreat in their Eggmobiles, and Sonic only destroys Snively's. Darn it. It's not over since Eggman still controls West Side Island. Sonic makes his way back to Green Hill Zone and flies his plane to West Side Island's Knothole Village. He meets up with his friends and in typical Sonic fashion, brags about his victory against Eggman. We learned during the chat that Eggman went to South Island to look for the Chaos Emeralds, but couldn't because they were located in the Special Zone. By Sonic's description, it is in fact this Special Zone. Oh, I'm getting woozy here. Sonic found 5 emeralds before finding King Acorn in the Special Zone, who gave him the 6th. If you're wondering, King Acorn made it back to West Side Island first because South Island is part of the Acorn Kingdom, and he found the transport. Notice the King's behavior. He's less jovial than usual, concerned about Eggman and wanting all the Chaos Emeralds to help restore the kingdom. I know he's probably been through a terrible experience, but at times he can seem a bit trollish. Anyway, after the king leaves, Sonic plans to retake West Side Island, and his friends want to help. Sonic's reluctant at first, but since they will fight Eggman with or without him, he lets them tag along. The issue ends with the newly formed Freedom Fighters off to stop Eggman. First things first, let's knock the game references out of the way. I'll glance over the more obvious stuff since, well, you don't want to hear me say, this is the final zone, the setting for the final boss. Boring, huh? I do want to point out a few nuggets people might have missed or not known about. Sonic flying the plane. People forget the Tornado is technically Sonic's plane.
Why not just use my plane, the Tornado?
See? Told you. It's because we're so used to seeing Tails in the pilot seat. There have been times when Sonic took the controls, usually if you're playing a non-Sonic character. Sonic only finding 6 Chaos Emeralds. Makes sense, there were only 6 emeralds in the first game. On a related note is South Island. Sonic's line about how it moves around and such is based on its description from the Japanese instruction manual, that the island shifts along the water due to some connection to the Chaos Emeralds. Don't even ask me what Springyard Zone's COPE means. I've heard it means deal with it. It could have been an acronym for one of the graphic processors used by the developers, or something else. On to the plot, as it were. It is a partial adaptation of Sonic 1, that is, the end of the game plus the aftermath. This is not the only time Sonic 1 was adapted in the main comic. There was one half the miniseries Sonic Genesis, the comic's way to celebrate Sonic's 20th anniversary, and you can look at those videos for my thoughts on them. The only things they have in common are, they adapt the first game, and it features SatAM characters. As I alluded to in the introduction, we're seeing how Sonic 1 fits in with the new continuity, so let's start with this. The reason Snively's with Eggman? He's a power-hungry imp and will latch on to anyone he can benefit from. Please note, while Eggman is in his classic look, Snively's appearance resembles his SatAM outfit. The Knothole Village stuff. If you haven't figured it out now, this is not King Acorn, it's Walter Noggis in disguise. The less fatherly behavior, obsession with Eggman, and getting power through the Chaos Emeralds to take over the kingdom should raise suspicion, but it's this obvious panel that seals the deal. I mentioned this in a previous review, but it bears repeating here. Sonic rescuing at the Sky Snogus is a shout out to the SatAM episode The Void. And for your benefit, both the King and Nagas were banished to another dimension by Robotnik in both the cartoon and the comic. Only in the comic's case, it's the Special Zone. We're also shown the origin of the Freedom Fighters. Previous comic material, some of which I haven't covered as of this video, mentioned Sonic's actions inspired the formation of the team, and we're seeing this in action. It pretty much boils down to, hey, you want to come along? Try to keep up! Our penciler for this issue, possibly the entire arc, is Tracy Yardley. It looks simpler compared to past issues, and in my opinion, I think that's the point. This issue gets a 6. This isn't much of a story as is, but a look to where Sonic 1 fits into the overall comic continuity. But then, the early classic games were light on story. Starting at the end of the first game, in my opinion, was probably a deliberate choice, because we just came from a long game adaptation that ended last issue, and the last thing people want right now is another time-consuming adaptation. Since this version of Sonic 1 is closer to the games than the one from Sonic Genesis, it's safe to say, if you want a general story idea, you can read the game summary, fire up your gaming machine to play it, or watch Let's Plays online. One more quick thing. The entire issue takes place in the past. No appearance by characters in the present to reminisce about days gone by. Next time we continue the world building as we get a brief glimpse into the second game within the context of this continuity. Until then, have a good day and be safe. Ah yeah, Sonic, pose for that victory shot.